And call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, we are very, very pleased to have Reverend Clay Burston from Mission Life Church in Baltimore, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 45th Legislative District. Please rise for the invocation.
Good morning, everyone. Let's all bow our heads for prayer. Father, Solomon prayed for wisdom, and you gave him wisdom and knowledge. In these tough times, God, we pray for our elected officials. We pray that you would give our leaders the wisdom that you gave to Solomon. We pray that you grant them wisdom, peace, and understanding as they guide us, Father, into a new prosperity for our people and all of our constituents. Bless them and their families with love, health, and wealth. And we pray, amen.
Well said. Amen. Thank you, sir. The chair recognizes the senator from the 45th District.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. I know you gave me a hard time on Wednesday, but I'm just following up, and I'm going to do a good job. But today I have the distinguished honor to be able to announce Pastor Clay Burston. I'm so proud of Pastor Burston. I want to say Clay, but I'm so proud of Pastor Burston because he's traveled a very similar journey as a lot of young men from Baltimore City. Born and raised, I'm going to say it's middle school. We talk about high schools, but he went to Chicklepen. So I went to Chicklepen. He went to Northern. I went to Northern. But he also is a graduate of Morgan State University and doing some great work within our communities from that standpoint, Mr. President. And one of the things that I know that Clay is very proud of is the Alive Center. The Alive Center where he takes our young people and thinking about what does that after school piece look like with the Artistic Laborers and Visual Exaltation Center, and making sure that he give back, whether it's the food pantry, whether it's making sure that our community is taken care of. I'd just like to welcome Pastor Burton to the Maryland State Senate. I know that this is his first time on this Senate floor, and just say that we're proud and thankful to have you here, Pastor Burston.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Pastor, for your work in the community as well as your guidance in faith and for being here this morning. Without objection, we will journalize the pastor's invocation this morning. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Let's do any quick introductions before we have a couple resolutions. Let's hold on pages for a moment. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Charles.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. Good morning. I would love to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
Please.
The Doctor of the Day is Dr. Richard Cook from Charles County. Please stand, Dr. Cook. Father of 3, 10 to 18-year-old. God bless you, sir. And active in the community in a lot of social and civic areas. So thank you, Dr. Cook, for being here. And thank you, Mr.
Wonderful.
President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Dr. Cook, for helping us and providing for our medical care for the day. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Any other introductions? If not, let's go ahead and bring in our very, very special guests today. And who do we have presenting? Do we have? I have the honor as they are coming in. Excellent. All right. Oh, that's why I had the resolution, which is no longer there. It all makes sense. All right, so all right, so we are very, very, very pleased today to have members from the volunteer firefighters across the state of Maryland. And today is a very special day. It is Sparky the fire dog's 71st birthday. Yes, exciting. So we have the National Fire Protection Association, who has been sponsor of Sparky for the last 71 years, who has been providing fire safety messages across the state, and everybody knows Sparky the fire dog. We're also joined by a number of the fire dogs with us. They are Sparky's brothers and sisters and cousins and uncles and aunts, and we are also joined today by Fire Marshal Brian Garacci, Fire Prevention Chair Teresa Chrisman, Legislative Chair Chief Robert Phillips, Richard Smith, Legislative Committee MSFA, Bethane Nessel, of course, Sparky, Joel McCrae, President of MSFA, Becky Wathen, President of the Ladies MSFA, John Nelson, and Zorro, the canine handler. So if the clerk could please read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Sparky the fire dog in recognition of the celebration of your 71st birthday and serving as the official mascot of the National Fire Protection Association, delivering invaluable fire safety messages to children and adults across the country. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 18th day of March, 2022.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone like to change their vote? The clerk will take the call. Oh, goodness. Members of the Senate and members of the Fire Association, the Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates Sparky the dog's 71st birthday, but more importantly, the incredible work that you all do in our communities across the state of Maryland
Mr. President.
every day. Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to get up and say thank you again to all the volunteers. You know, pretty much every one of our districts has volunteers, and they are the backbone of the fire service. I myself was one for a long time. I know Senator from District 35 still is, and I think a couple other members might have. But I just want to give a shout out to Joel McCrae, the president of the Maryland State Firemen's Association. He and I went through the fire academy together 32 years ago. We started and graduated together. Our stations were next to each other, so we ran a lot of calls together. It's hard to believe it's been that long. Joel, thank you for everything you're doing.
Mr.
Thank you.
President,
Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County.
if I may, the timing is perfect because colleagues, last night before we closed up shop, we passed a bill that will now provide for the hardworking folks who are standing before us and their incredible canines, that when they are retired, their days of service are done, that they'll get some help with the veterinary expenses for caring for these incredible dogs who do all the incredible work that we as humans either don't want to do or can't do. So great job to this chamber, and thank you all so much for all that you do, your hard work. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th Legislative District.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleague from the 7th District mentioned it's been the honor of my life to be a life member to Level Volunteer Fire Company in Harford County, where I had the opportunity to serve as a chief at one time and also the president. But one thing, we talk about our first responders and all they do providing the service of fire, EMS, rescue. But another thing that we don't hear as much about is fire prevention. And the best way to fight a fire is to stop it from ever happening in the first place. And these folks put in tons of hours in every one of their communities to do wonderful fire prevention programs that have saved countless lives over the years that we'll never know about and property. So I want to thank you for that and continue to keep working to make sure you get the funding that you deserve from the state. So thank you and for all you do, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for that reflection. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to echo what was said prior to me, but I'd also like to mention that having been a public safety official forever, fire prevention has been key in my life. I will tell you, As a law enforcement officer, if you say that there's a person with a weapon, I will run to them, toward them, and I will thwart that threat. However, if you say there's a fire, I will learn what I learned in the academy to set up a perimeter and call you guys the experts, right? But lastly, I'd like to say that as a person that also represents 3 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland. In Prince George's, we have a combination. Charles County is volunteer fire service, but their EMTs and EMS folks are paid status. I also represent Calvert County, who was the last of the 24 jurisdictions to have anyone paid, and they just made the decision to bring on the EMS, but our fire is still volunteer. So love what you do, love everything you do every day, and keep protecting us.
Thank you,
Thank
Senator.
you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Senator from the 33rd District.
Thank you very much. Just want to make sure you know there's other people up in the galleries, including my friends, my constituent, the Woods. Let's give a warm round of applause for the folks up in the gallery.
Thank you all for being here. Well, we are so, yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 37th District.
Thank you very much. I would not be doing my duty if I didn't recognize our constituents from the Eastern Shore. So Richard Smith from Talbot County and Robert Phillips. Just a little story. I bought a new condo, 8 or 10 years ago, and Christmas Eve, about 5 o'clock, I was on my way home from where I was working at Eastern Shore Hospital Center, and I stopped at the light, and Bobby pulled up alongside of me. He said, "Girl, you better get home." And I'm going, "Why?" He said, "You got the whole fire department at your place." I'm going, "You're kidding me." So I followed him on home. Sure enough, I had the whole fire department, and they were in all their gear, and they're beginning to chop out the ceiling in our condo bedroom because we'd had a major leak. But these guys were all ready to go to church with their families, and underneath all of their gear were their dress clothes. It was unbelievable. So trust me, they are critical when you need them. God bless you all. We will do everything we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you. Well, we appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for being here, and hope that you have a wonderful day in Annapolis and enjoy, and thanks for bringing Sparky here with us to celebrate, and we'll try and do our part to make sure that the fire prevention message is heard loud and clear. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes. Oh, thank you. Oh, I have the official Sparky. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we now have the official, you know where this is going to go. It's going to go in our new, our representative, what is it? What do we call it? The break front, and will be displayed for all. So thank you all very, very much, and we appreciate you all. Excellent. Our Sergeant at Arms will help escort you all to. The dogs already know where they're going. Lots of treats today. So as we're transitioning along here, thank you all. You know, if you are ever talking to our wonderful Chief of Staff on the phone and you hear little bells in the background, which often are, you know, late at night at 12 or 1 in the morning, what those bells are her dog Watson, because as many of you all know, Sally is Miss Robb is a member of the Chesapeake Search and Rescue, and her dog Watson is part of the. She's often doing trainings over the weekend. So whenever you hear those little bells, it means that she is out in the middle of the woods, likely looking for a, human cadaver or some aspect. So I can't tell you the number of conversations we've had in the background where she is searching and rescuing.
Mr. President.
Yes, Chair.
So your Chief of Staff literally knows where bodies are buried.
Literally knows where they are. That is exactly right. All right. So, Senators, yes, Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to say farewell to our pages for the week who've been working with us. So I believe we're going to see their beautiful smiling faces up on the board. And I will introduce them to you so we can send them off with a warm celebration. So from Montgomery County District 15, Clarksburg High School, Nikita Balajapelli. Joshua Hirschfield from Howard County District 9A, Reservoir High School. Emily Modell, Hartford County District 35B, C. Milton Wright High School. Paris Newland, Cecil County District 35A, Elkton High School. McCabe Pievis, Caroline County District 37B, North Carolina High School. Stevie Shack, County, District 37B, St. Michael's Senior High School, and Edward Sun, Prince George's County, District 21, Eleanor Roosevelt High School. Thank you very much. We wish you the very best and have a wonderful rest of the year. We enjoyed having you with us. Pages, let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you so
Mr.
much,
President.
Madam Chair. And we do wish them the best. They're our best and brightest, and hope they have a wonderful college entrance here moving forward. Let's just check in. Do we have our other guests? Okay. We're gonna move on and start with the business of the day. We will have to interrupt for a moment because we started a little bit earlier. We're going to have the Teachers of the Year from across the state here today. They thought that we were starting at 11, but since we started at 10, we weren't able to get the communication out to everybody. So when they arrive, we'll just pause and we'll do the celebration then of their excellent work. Any other pieces of business before we jump into it today? All right, if not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. Let's go ahead and start with a message from the House. We'll do message number 2. The clerk will read the message.
Senate Bill 641, Carroll County Senators. Carroll County, County Commissioner Districts, redistricting plan. This is an emergency bill.
All right, we have another message. This is message number 3. Clerk will read the message.
Senate Bill 1010, the President, motor fuel taxes, tax-free period. This is an emergency bill.
All right. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and make sure that we do that on our side here, if we have it. Okay, let's take up, do we have everyone here? We did a quorum call, I think we'll be fine. We have a third reading bill. This is third reading calendar number 1 of House bills. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1486, Delegate Johnson, motor fuel taxes, tax-free period. This is an emergency bill.
All right, Senators, House Bill 1486 is on third reading for final passage. This is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1486, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. And Senators, it looks like we will likely take this up. The governor will be doing a signing at 2 o'clock today, so we will be moving this along and hopefully providing relief to Marylanders across the state as soon as implementation can occur, hopefully within the next 24 hours. All right, let's stick on the third reading calendars so that we can move our budget along. This is third reading calendar number 47 of Senate bills. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 290, the President, Budget Bill, Fiscal Year 2023.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope that folks wouldn't consider this overly dramatic to say that putting together the budget is a labor of love. I know that's true for myself, and I know it's true for the whole committee. And I'm very proud of what we've done, proud of what they've done. Yesterday was a little odd, I have to say, in a sense, because we went through sort of the perfunctory amendments of the budget, and that says something about the budget. Then we took up a couple perennial issues, and I don't mean to diminish that in any way, very important, heartfelt issues that deal with the budget. But in a grand sense, I don't think that's what's really reflected in what we've accomplished this year. If we look down, and I know you all have seen this fence list, and I think it's worth looking at again. It's worth looking at again because there's a lot of important things there. We're really touching a lot of lives. The reason that I've always liked being part of the budget is because I recognize that when we put our money to something, when we put our value to something, we're really saying that that matters to us as a society, as a community. If you go down the list, the very first thing is an additional 4% for the provider community. I mean, this is a big deal. It's a big deal because first off, the governor actually funded our mandate. There was already significant money in the budget for this. But we recognized that essentially doubling it for another 4% was really important, because there's people struggling out there, struggling with the labor markets the way they are to hire people to provide the services that are really necessary for people with disabilities, for people with mental illness and concerns. You know that there's been a 46% rise in the number of youth attempts in suicide since the pandemic began. 46%. We got to step up. And we did. And we did. And we did. There's also one-time money, significant money, to help with workforce issues for hospitals and the critical care. And there's all kinds of aspects on this chart that touch people's lives. You know, we kid our vice chair all the time because of his near obsession with apprenticeships. Near, yeah. But you know what? That obsession is because he recognizes that the world is changing, that the job market is changing, that we're going to have to do different things to be successful as a society. And apprenticeships play a role in that. We put some significant resources in that. We've got money in the arts. We're helping individuals who are struggling at the lower income levels with temporary cash assistance increases and temporary disability money. You know, one of the things I'm particularly also proud of this year is putting some resources in Medicaid for dental coverage. You know, that might not seem like the biggest thing, but think about folks out, maybe out on the street, trying to get a job. You know, that they, can you imagine if you're constantly in pain, if you've got dental issues, and trying to make it out in the world when that's something that's not covered, that you can't get the resources to handle those issues. We do a lot in this budget also with economic development. And all over the state. It's another thing that I'm very proud of, Mr. President, about who we are as a committee and as a body. We really, I believe in the One Maryland concept. We're doing a significant new program for Western Maryland, significant. But we also have money in there for existing programs in the metro areas. We're trying to think about everybody all across the state. Another one that I'm very concerned about that you may or may not be aware of, VOCA. And if you know what that means, that's the Victims of Crime Act. We have received significant funding over the last couple of years from the federal government. Well, that's been cut in half for the most part. These are folks who are struggling as victims, domestic violence, all kinds of horrible cases where we'd like to provide support. Well, we're stepping up and backfilling the money, and I think is very important. Child care money. Back to mental health for a second. You know, we're going to be starting a new program where you're going to be able to call like 911 is 988 for suicide or other mental health issues. We're getting it started. We're jump-starting it. We're using the money that we have in surplus. We're doing, for the first time ever, the state is committing to research dollars for pediatric cancer research. We've got some good money allocated to small and minority women-owned business accounts. We have 9 fund managers, yes, fund managers across the state that work in communities to ensure that resources go and people are helped in starting these businesses and making them happen. We've got some money for Alzheimer's and the aging community. And some of the big stuff, you know, I'm sorry that the chair is not here. Oh, he's here. Ah, he's here. You know, one of the big things that we've decided in this budget is that we needed to take big chunks of resource to plan for our future and to ensure the things that we've committed to already actually happen. And there's nothing probably bigger than what we've done for the blueprint. $800 million in one-time money, which will help us pay for this program over the next decade or more. Significant commitment, and I think in the right way too, in the right thinking. We also did, at the very end of the budget process, another $30 million for rental housing. The governor had already put in 60-some million for that, which was great. But we decided to do the extra step, you know, knowing the housing market right now, knowing what's happening out there, how hard it is for people to find places to live. This was clearly a priority for our committee. And then, of course, we put this placeholder, which has kind of been hovering over us for weeks now, about what we're going to do to provide some tax relief. And we're going to do it. We believe in it. The thrust of it is a program for retirees, but there are some other tax benefits that folks are going to see over the year. The surplus is one time. This is a point in time, and we're taking, I believe, the right steps to configure, to leverage, to plan, to make sure that we're doing the right things for today and helping people who need it the most right now, and also setting ourselves up for the future so that we are, that we continue to be successful as a state. Again, I'm very proud of the work that the committee has done. I'm really very proud of this body. And I think that we have a lot to be able to speak about. We have a lot to go home to tell our constituents about. This is, I believe, very much a reflection of our values, and I just want to thank you all for being part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Additional discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I can't speak as eloquently as the chairman did and can't remember all the numbers like he does. He's got this calculator in his head. He can remember all of them. But from the four of us who serve on B&T, and I think I can speak for everybody else over on this side, I want to thank the chairman for being open, allowing participation, transparency. Trudy won Maryland. We've accomplished a lot this year. I think it's sometimes harder when you have money to do a budget than when you don't have money to do a budget. And I think it was last year I got up on the floor and said there was an artesian well of money. There's still an artesian well of money. I think it was 2 weeks ago we had new revenue estimates. The amount went up considerably. So every time that changes, the chairman and his hierarchy have to sit down and look at the numbers and how do you massage them to work them in the existing budget. And I think there's still more to come, probably, which takes a lot of time. I mean, this person, because I work with him pretty close, has put in a tremendous amount of time and energy working on the budget. He has to first work with this body, the members in this body, to get their input. Then he's got to work across the hall with our colleagues over there, and then he has to work with the people on the second floor. And sometimes it's not easy to get everybody on the same song sheet. Is everything in his budget what everybody in here likes? I'm sure there's one or two things in there you don't like. But personally, you have to look at it in a global perspective. You look at the globe. How does the globe look? And if we all did a budget, we'd have over here we'd have 47 different budgets. It doesn't work that way. We, I think, have treated everybody probably as fairly as could be treated with this budget. The geographical regions of the state, and our committee is pretty diverse and spread out, and we try to work with each other to help each other out, help each geographical area out. in the state. I think we did a good job, especially with the leadership of our chairman. And we still have a little ways to go, but we got the budget, I believe, in a great position. That as long as we keep looking at it the way we're looking at it, a lot of this money, Mr. President, as you know, is one-time money. So we looked at it in conjunction with what programs take 1 year money. Some of them you can use in 2 years, and some up to 3 years. And we tried to do that in the categories in the budget that we worked with. So if we keep looking at it that way, those of you who are going to be here next year and years after that, we should not get into structural deficit the way we were the last several years. We got to be cognizant of the money that's available, how much we can put out. We need to keep a good reserve, so if something does happen, we're in a good position to take care of it. So again, Mr. President, I want to thank Chairman Gazzoni and all the members of Budget and Tax for the great job they did this year. Same thing speaking for the capital budget. Chairman from Montgomery County over there did a tremendous job on that. We're not on there yet, but I'm going to throw it out now. And trying to, I guess I'll use the word satisfy everybody, but you can't give everybody everything they want. But he put in a lot of time, did a good job in trying to spread it around. So again, from this side of the aisle to that side of the aisle, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. And if I have to send you an email next year to put 2 cents worth in, I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Well said, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the Middle Shore. Oh. I would just give us, let's do the chairman quickly.
If all you asked was for 2 cents, you got it.
Chair recognizes the senator from the Middle Eastern Shore.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen. I also want to echo the words of my colleague from the far west. We're out here on the far east, but we have had a great opportunity working with the leadership of the chairman. But I also want to say everybody looks good, because for all of us who are sitting here on the floor, we have a whole team back in the offices who are scrambling and multitasking like I've never seen before, and I think the chairman would agree. We just want to say kudos, thank you. We deeply appreciate all the staff who are not here on the floor, who make everybody here look good. They are incredible. Let's give them a round of applause.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said. Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore County.
Things were already said very well, and it's very much so need to be applauded. But I appreciate the chair, the vice chair, and I appreciate every part, and I appreciate our subcommittees. Our subcommittees and our leadership in our subcommittees and our chairs did a tremendous job in their presentation. They represented our committee, but I know they represent this state well. And I appreciate my chair. He works with us. He works together. He works across the aisle. But he hasn't said another thing, which he's very humble about that. We got procurement now in our committee. And we see how much of a major responsibility it is. And we're trying to be responsible in that area. And I see that. So I appreciate all that we're doing in our committee. And I see how hard his staff works and how well he works together with us. They all work together with us. And I appreciate every person in every position. And I appreciate also the chairman in Capitol. He's very, very good. I can see he's very, very good at what he does, because that's not easy, because I see how difficult it is, and I see how hard they work. And I want to thank every chair in my committee with how they represent us. And I am honored to be a part of Budget Tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Any further discussion? Yes, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say thank you to the Budget and Tax, and especially the chairman. Some people see us on the floor and we battle issues, but they don't see us when we go off the floor, when we go to lunch or we play a game of chess or something. We fight here and then we're friends off the floor. I think that's important. And I think this was a collaboration. I think the chairman's very fair, approachable, took our concerns in the budget. I know it's difficult even with the surplus we have. There's always more requests than money. And on a small level, with having 7 kids, I can tell you as they get older, it's like that. No matter how much I make, there's always more requests, and I'm sure it's even harder here in the budget, so thank you so much for that. And I know we're negotiating, and I'm just hopeful that we can come up with something that'll help our seniors. I know I've been hearing it all the time, that they're leaving the state and they want to stay here, and I know you're trying to work that, so you have our support, and Godspeed on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion? Yes, Chair recognizes the Chair of the committee.
Yeah, I have to stand up and speak about the staff, and thank you to the Senator from Eastern Shore. Erica, Matt, Philip, Kim, Deanna, the whole team, David Romans and his whole team. I just have to mention their names because there's just no way we could get through all this without all them. And I am very grateful. They are some smart people who know how to get the job done. So thank you to them. Thank you,
Senator. No doubt. And not just smart, they are so hardworking. I mean, just see the job, get it done. It's incredible. We're so blessed. All right, any further discussion? If not, Senate Bill 290, the budget bill for fiscal year 2023, is on third reading for final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Chair, in explaining his vote, just want to thank the chairman, the vice chair, the subcommittee chairs, each member of Budget and Tax, and every member of this body who participated in this budget, the staff who helped to put it together. What's very clear, what we are doing here today is this is the Senate's value proposition. This is where we say who we are and what we believe in. And what we believe in is investing in Marylanders' health, our economy, and public safety. As this budget has shown, as the chairman said incredibly eloquently, this is a statement of who we are, and as we see the green votes on the board, I think we should be really proud. The one additional note is that when this budget came in from the administration, it was very clear, there were signals within the budget, in the legislative signaling that happens, that the conversation was expected and hoping to happen. And what I think is very important that we send back, and I think we do so effectively, is that that conversation not only is still open, but we look forward to finding the compromise and getting to a place where we leave this session with a budget where everyone's around the table and feels proud about where we are in this historic moment. And so hopefully that message is heard across the street and a floor above. This is the year that we have the opportunity to really do something pretty remarkable. This budget helps us move along the way, and look forward to getting there by the end of this session. So with that, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 290, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Excellent. Part one. Onwards we go. Do we have teachers? Not yet? Okay. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 427, Senator West, Baltimore County, hunting non-game birds and mammals.
All right, Senate Bill 427 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 427, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 705, Senator Zucker, Education, Physical Restraint and Seclusion, Limitations, Reporting and Training.
Senate Bill 705 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will...
Mr. President.
Oh, yes.
I just explain my vote real briefly. I want to thank the senator from Montgomery County for working on this issue. Many of you may remember, I was quite frankly unfamiliar with some of the controversies and problems we're having, and I got up and talked about during the special session Frederick County and really some of the issues we had. I won't rehash it all, but if you just look at in 2018 through 2019 school year, Frederick County had 1,996 uses of restraint. And prior to that, they had 1,700 uses of restraint, and it was only on, I'm sorry, let me get this number right. Frederick County schools had had used seclusion 7,253 times on just 125 students. So this is certainly needed. I thank you for doing this. Hopefully other school systems will not see the problems that Frederick County had. And I would just say one thing for my colleagues that are going to be here next year. I hope that we'll look to have more state oversight, quite frankly, because it was a shame that it took the federal government, the Department of Justice, uncovering it, that the state was really not able and is still sort of handcuffed by our laws to intervene as they should properly on these things. But again, I thank the Senator from Montgomery County for working on this, and it shows the good work of the Maryland Senate, where a senator can stand up on the floor, talk about a problem, and then we're producing legislation to address it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well said, Senator. Thank you. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th District.
Yeah, just explaining my vote. I think that we need to trust our teachers that are doing the right thing, and restraining our teachers is not the appropriate solution here. The appropriate solution is allowing our teachers to do what we trained them to do, what we hired them to do, and to protect all of our children. And I think this bill is extremely one-sided and sets a terrible policy for the state. So there's no way I can support a policy that requires a teacher to risk their career in the classroom if they act before they find that a child's misbehavior and their aggressive action presents an extreme risk of harm to the other students. I think it's a ridiculous standard, and I just find that something that's unworkable for the safety of our students throughout this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further explanations of vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 705, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 825, Senator Kramer, Commercial Financing Transactions Requirements.
Senate Bill 825 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 825, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Not yet. Okay. Let's go to, speaking of teachers, we're just waiting for them to come, so we're trying to figure out, don't want to get too deep into something and have them wait. Let's use laid over calendar number 36. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 221, the President, Department of the Environment, Enforcement Authority. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right. Question before the body are the two committee amendments. Any discussion of those amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Chair recognizes the minority whip on the report.
Mr. President, I am waiting on an amendment, and I wanted to know if we could special order this for
30 minutes?
Yeah, I hope. Can we try that? Yeah, and see how
where we are.
how we're doing. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Any objections to the special order? No objections. Senator, on this.
I have some questions on the bill. It's on the report. So if we want to do those later on the amendments, but they really fit on the report.
Why don't we withdraw the motion?
I would be happy to withdraw.
And then we'll do some questions, see where we are, and maybe it arrives. So, Chair, the questions for the floor leader?
Yes, thank you.
Senator may proceed.
Thanks, floor leader. Some ambiguity here that I'm just trying to understand. It gives a hearing. Is this hearing before? Is it before the department itself? Because that's what the bill appears to say. It's a hearing before the department, or is it the Office of Administrative Hearings?
Office of Administrative Hearings.
Because the bill specifically says it's a hearing before the department, and that troubles me. Why they would say that?
Yeah. This deals with a number of different areas. Drinking water is only
Yeah,
one.
and I realize that. It's a whole bunch of stuff.
For the drinking water, and it also deals with dams, non-tidal wetlands, and water pollution. For the drinking water, and this was one of the key things the Attorney General wanted, was the administrative path, which, as you know, goes before an ALJ.
Right.
So I'm not sure. Can you tell me what line?
Let me see if I. I'm sorry, it shrunk up on me. Here. This is the department. This is page. What page is this? 13, line 12. In line 12 and 13 says that apartment shall hold a hearing. And it seems to me that should have said obviously the department has to bring the action. They would be the moving party, but that the department would hold hearings. Seems to suggest that the hearing would be, in the old days, before the APA, that we're holding it actually before the department instead of before the...
I think that's exactly it, Senator. If you keep reading, it says, in accordance with the Administrative Procedure Act.
Yeah, okay. To me, that says the department conducts its own hearings using the procedures set forth in the APA, which would have been the old days that we had a set of proceedings, but that says before. Okay. And then the other, I just find that ambiguous, and maybe I just ask somebody to explain that one to me. Then maybe that standard language, if that's the standard language we use for all other department hearings before the APA.
We're checking.
All right. And then the
Senator, within the environment article, yes.
That
it's a standard language in the environment article.
That would then send it to the Office of Administrative Hearings. Yes. That's the standard language that would send it for hearing in Office of Administrative Hearings, not before the department, right? Okay, thank you. And then on the fine, it's also, it would appear that the fines. It's unclear to me whether the fines can be imposed before this hearing by the department.
From the committee, counsel said generally yes, but the person on the receiving end of the fine could ask for a hearing.
So they impose the fine, they ask for hearing, and then the hearing is on whether the fines apply. But once they've imposed the fines, wouldn't that give the Attorney General the right to then move forward at that point to levy on their assets and the like? Or would that only be after the hearing?
I think there is time in between. I don't think they say, first of all, as you know, in most of these cases, there are numerous warnings. It's not just they find out of compliance and boom, they hit you with a,
No, I understand.
Department of Environment gives time. My understanding is there is time when the fine is explained or told to the violator, and before they actually collect it. I think they have an opportunity for the appeal.
So it's going to be laid over. So maybe in the meantime, somebody can reach back to me, because that's my real question. Is it's just a due process one. Do you have this hearing before the Office of Administrative Hearings? They say, yeah, there's a fine, and then you can appeal at circuit court, and then it's not, the Attorney General can't levy on that until after the due process is exercised. That's the gist of my question.
We'll check on it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Let's go ahead and renew. Let's see if we want to do. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair.
Since we're doing a layover, Mr. Chair, I do want to hopefully get some clarification on process, because it's a highly unusual process. From the intent of the bill is obviously worthwhile. It sounds solid, but the process upon which there's a penalty, and you end up with a lien attached to real property or personal property, without having to first go get a judgment, so that, for example, if there's language here about liens, okay? Is that lien attached to somebody's bank account? Is it attached to somebody's dishwasher? I make that point is if you purchase something and there's a judgment, it's filed in the court records. Here, this process is a little bit unusual, that if you're dealing with somebody, you wouldn't necessarily know that there's some state lien that's attached. So during the interim period, Mr. Chair, I just put that out there, the process from penalty to lien to what are we covering, without having to go to a courtroom and get a judgment, which is then filed with the county courthouse. So again, this is not like any process I've actually ever seen before, so I just want to put that out. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Do we want to renew the motion to special order? Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to special order this for 45 minutes. Yeah.
All right. No objection. Any objection to special order? Without objection, so ordered. The bill will be special order. The bill and the report will be special ordered for 45 minutes. All right, let's do an easy second reader here, just so that if we have to stop in the middle of it, we can do so. So let's do the Education, Health, Environmental Affairs report number 35. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 698, Senator Zucker, Alcoholic Beverages, Maryland Alcoholic Manufacturing and Promotion, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you. Senate Bill 698 establishes an advisory commission for the Maryland Alcohol Manufacturing and the Alcohol Manufacturing Promotion Fund in the Department of Commerce. The comptroller generally must distribute alcohol tax revenues from the alcohol produced from breweries, distilleries, and wineries to the fund. The secretary may award grants to nonprofits and other state and local governments for promoting them. There were 2 amendments. The first alters the composition of the commission, and the second one alters the reporting requirements. I move the amendment in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 698 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 869, Senator Washington, Baltimore Smith City Small Box Discount Stores, Zoning Requirements and Community Agreements, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 869 requires Baltimore City to use the state land, their land use code to address the issues around the overconcentration of small box discount stores. The concern has been that they while they're providing good, affordable prices, that sometimes some communities feel choked by them. The bill requires the mayor and city council of Baltimore City to establish a specified zoning regulation with respect to small box discount stores. Now, small box discount stores are a retail store ranging from 5 to 12 square feet that offers for sale an assortment of goods at a discount price. In the bill, at a price less than $5. Small box discount stores do not include retail stores, prescription pharmacies, or stores that sell gasoline, diesel fuel, or other items. This bill, as amended, requires the Baltimore City to conduct a study and to regulate their distribution and saturation using zoning. Additionally, it requires to have a community agreement as a part of the conditional use. As there are 2 amendments, the first amendment makes technical changes. The second amendment clarifies the definition of a community benefits agreement and small box discount stores. It requires that the community benefits agreement be entered into as a part of the applicant for them to make a best effort, so no community is able to veto an approved discount store. Removes a number of provisions that were frankly too prescriptive, and it makes sure that whatever zoning is made is based on the results of the study. It authorizes, instead of requiring Baltimore City to require the detrimental impacts on small, local, and family independent owned business stores. Originally, the motivation of our delegation around this is to ensure that local family-owned stores are not driven out of business by this land use. It also increases the amount of time to implement the provisions of the bill and certain requirements, and again, it requires the study. As amended, it passed our Senate delegation unanimously and also the EHE committee. I ask for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes the senator from the 34th district.
I just requested the floor leader, if I could.
Senator may proceed.
Did the Attorney General chime on this? Has this been deemed constitutional?
Sorry?
Has the Attorney General chimed in on this at all? Was there a constitutional?
I met with planning, and we were able to make a recommendation. We're not actually zoning. We are asking them to do this. So we're not actually writing the zoning, so we are able to do it.
The Attorney General There was Attorney General's opinion given. It's
Oh.
constitutional, or you're not sure?
I didn't get that opinion.
Thank you.
All right. On the amendments, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 869 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 907, Senator Simon Ayer, Elections, Polling Place Location Restrictions, Repeal. Favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sometimes in some parts of our state, it's hard to figure out and identify a safe and convenient place for folks to vote. This bill will simply offer the alternative of allowing opportunities to use a place that has an alcohol license, but only in specific circumstances. The bill has been amended. The first amendment is technical. The second amendment requires the State Board of Elections to create regulations and stuff. So for instance, can't serve alcohol 2 hours before the polls open and not until 2 hours after the polls close, that the ballots need to be removed right away and all that. So it also makes this an emergency bill if this body determines that. There was one more thing I was going to tell you. In any case, good bill, makes sense, offers some flexibility. It will not apply in time for the primary election, but if the regs are adopted, it will offer options for the general election. So move the adoption of the two amendments and the favorable report.
Floor leader moves the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report on the amendments. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City and County on the amendments.
Thank you. If I might ask the floor leader just a question.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. Would you mind sharing why were these prohibitions in place in the first place?
I'm afraid I wasn't serving back in the day when current law was adopted that I'm aware of, but I think probably there's some concern about people being intoxicated when they cast a ballot. And so that seems like a narrowing restriction that probably made sense, but in some parts of the state, I think there aren't enough options as to voting locations, which is why this narrow bill was crafted by the gentleman from Anne Arundel County.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. All right. On the two amendments, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 907 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 908, Harford County Senators. Harford County Board of Education, appointment of members, alterations, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill has to do with the Harford County Board of Education. A little background, there are 9 voting members on that board right now. 6 are elected in district along the same districts as our council members, and 3 are appointed by the governor. What this bill would do is change the appointment to being done by the county executive with approval of a supermajority of the county council, which would be a minimum of 5 out of those 7 members. This bill also, in appointing the members of the board, the county executive must ensure, to the extent practicable, that the total makeup of the board reflects the gender, ethnic, and racial diversity of the county. And the last thing this bill does, it staggers starting in 2024. The 3 appointed members would be appointed in the presidential election years starting in 2024. This passed out of committee unanimously. I'd like to move for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 908 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 916, Senator Jackson, work group to study the fiscal and operational viability of public-private partnerships for Charles County Public Schools, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Charles County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill establishes a work group to study the fiscal and operational viability of public-private partnerships for Charles County Public Schools. As most of you know, Charles County is a very fast-growing county, in the top 5 fastest-growing counties in the state. Families moving there, very desirable place to live. The prices are right or righter than so many other places in the state. And so we want to provide continue to provide quality schools for our constituents. So this bill will set up a work group to study partnership, P3, public-private partnerships, and have some cost-effective options in producing new schools for our constituents. There are no amendments. I move for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Always be closing, right? That's the floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. All in favor of the any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 916 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 952, Senator Huff. Frederick County's Board of Education vacancies favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a local Frederick County bill that establishes an exemption to the general requirement that an individual appointed to fill a vacancy on the Frederick County Board of Education serves for the remainder of the term. Under the bill, if a vacancy for an elected member occurs 30 days or less before the candidate registration deadline for the next primary, the county exec must appoint, subject to confirmation of the county council, a qualified individual to fill the vacancy for the remainder of the term until a successor is elected and qualifies. If a vacancy occurs more than 30 days before the candidate registration deadline for the primary, following the vacating member's election, the individual appointed serves only until a successor is elected and qualifies at the next general election. The bill will go into effect July 1st, 2022. There are no committee amendments, and I move for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 952 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 965, Senator Jackson. Charles County alcoholic beverages, multiple Class B licenses favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you. This is a local Charles County bill and allows a person to obtain a direct or indirect interest up to 2 Class BH hotel or Class BR restaurant or Class BRB restaurant bar on sale beer, wine, and liquor licenses. There were 2 amendments. The first one is technical. The second one conforms the language to other counties' authorization language. I would move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 965 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, senators, we're going to take a quick pause. Oh, Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I might be too late, but I'd like to be reported in the green on Senate Bill 825.
825 still in our possession. Any objections to the senator's request? Without objection, so ordered. All right, we're going to take a quick pause to do a presentation for the Teachers of the Year. And so if we could have our wonderful teachers join. As they enter, we have incredible, incredible individuals from across the state of Maryland. And we will introduce each as we do the resolution, we will be sure to read off the name of each teacher and the county in which they are teaching. I do have to give a special shout out to Miss Sydney Thomas for her incredible work. She is at Hollibird Elementary in my district, so you get a special great to see you, and works for does the advisory for Charm Magazine. If you all have not seen Charm Magazine, check it out. It's incredible. All right. Do we have everybody? We're a little can we slide it down this way? Maybe we do 2 rows so we can make sure everybody gets in the picture. So much greatness, you can't even capture it all in one spot. While we're arranging, how about let's do this. Let's read, and teachers, please, as your name is read, please just give the senators a wave so that they know who they are celebrating from their respective counties. The clerk will read the resolution.
Allegheny County, Nicholas Amick. Anne Arundel County, Di Jane. Baltimore City, Sidney Thomas. Calvert County, Jennifer Rashik. Caroline County, Susie Michelle Foster. Carroll County, Dondella Deal. Charles County, Alexis Eaton. Dorchester County, Amy Stoops. Frederick County, Jennifer Perez Ryan. Garrett County, Lindsay Kirshner. Harford County, Lauren Bird. Howard County, Amy Wolf. Kent County, Karen R.B. Saunders. Montgomery County, Joseph D. Bostick, Jr. Prince George's County, Adrian Leak. Queen Anne's County, Stephanie McKenzie. St. Mary's County, April Ryan. Somerset County, John Logan Webster. Talbot County, Lauren Greer. Washington County, Carolyn Slagle. Wacomico County, Dustin Thomas. Worcester County, R.T. Sangwin. And Cecil County, Mary Spence.
The clerk will read the resolution in full.
In 2021 Teachers of the Year, in recognition of being selected as the 2021-2022 Teachers of the Year for your jurisdictions, we applaud your outstanding contributions to enhancing the education of Maryland students. Congratulations.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. Incredible, incredible educators. The Senate of Maryland so deeply appreciates your unbelievable leadership in this state. We are so thankful for each and every one of you. Just congratulations on being selected as Teachers of the Year. It is now my distinct honor, joined by the Superintendent of Schools, who, Mr. Superintendent, you'll know that in the Senate we've had a lot of conversations about your opinion on certain things. So we've had lots of excellent policy talk here. But it is my genuine honor to introduce Brianna Chanel Ross of Deer Park Middle Magnet School. She's a social studies teacher for grade 6. Ms. Ross views teaching as, quote, a revolutionary act of love. With both a Bachelor's of Science degree in Applied Developmental Psychology in 2014, a Master of Education degree in Curriculum and Instruction in 2015 from the University of Pittsburgh, we won't hold that against you, Pittsburgh, and a Certificate of Administration and Supervision from Loyola University of Maryland in 2019, Ross expects her doctorate in Urban Educational Leadership from Morgan State University in 2024. Having taught in both elementary and middle schools, Ross serves as her school's equity liaison and social studies departmental chair. She coordinates a summer transition program she launched to help elementary students prepare for and thrive in middle school. Ms. Ross is our Maryland Teacher of the Year. If the clerk could please read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Brianna Chanel Ross, Deer Park Middle Magnet School, in recognition of being selected as the 2021-2022 Teacher of the Year for the state of Maryland. We applaud your outstanding contributions to enhancing the education of Maryland students. Congratulations. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 18th day of March 2022.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. Ms. Ross, the entire Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates your selection and your work as the Maryland Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. We'd now like to invite Ms. Rush to address the chamber.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for no one voting no. I appreciate that. I first want to just say thank you to the Senate and Superintendent Chowdhury for allowing us to be here on this beautiful and finally sunny Friday morning, just for taking a moment to recognize what excellence in education looks like. I am so grateful to stand here with these 23 other incredible, passionate, and committed educators. And I know that this is a moment to celebrate us and our accomplishments, but I also realize that this is a moment and an opportunity to celebrate all of the hardworking teachers across our state. I am fully confident that you could step into any school building from Garrett to Worcester and find a Teacher of the Year. The teachers of Maryland have handled the last 3 years with remarkable grace and dignity, and they continue to demonstrate a tireless commitment and unwavering education for all of our students. And so there is not a teacher in this state who doesn't deserve to be standing here in front of all of you, so I want to recognize and thank them. We are truly living in a watershed moment in education, and I think we are in a beautiful position to redefine and reimagine what schools should look like for our students. And if this school year has taught me anything, I have come to understand that the students of this generation are the most resilient and resolute human beings on this planet. They have managed to live and learn in spite of grief and trauma and loss, and all while managing the complexities of what it means to just grow up. I've seen the students in my own county show unbelievable compassion and altruism, mobilizing volunteer efforts to support communities in need, using their agency and their voices to affect local policy, speaking out in inequity, and even finding little small moments in a cafeteria or a locker room just to check in on each other and make sure everyone's mental and emotional health and wellness is in check. So I hope that as we engage in this work of reimagining possibility and opportunity for the schools in Maryland, that we embody the spirit of justice, of compassion, and of resilience that our students have so easily adapted. As we work to create more equitable education in Maryland, I hope that we all can continue to see the humanity in ourselves and in each other. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this incredible recognition and honor.
As we're taking a picture, Chair recognizes Senator from District 10.
Here is teaching in a school in District 10, which I represent. We are particularly proud. And I'm a lifelong educator, and I love what all of you have agreed to do and that you do it so well. Thank you.
But teachers, thank you so much. This year has been, the last 3 years have been totally insane, right? I have 2 kids, and just thank you all so, so much for what you're doing. It has been unbelievable. You all are doing remarkable, remarkable work. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we will have, if you are in the lounge, we'll do a second reader calendar so that senators can, if they want to take pictures with their respective counties' Teachers of the Year, we'll kind of rotate in and out. So we'll hold the calendars for the more controversial stuff. We'll wait a moment. Thank you. Great to see you. All right. The best of the best. It's always fun to see those who are the best in what they do. All right. Let's do this. Let's find one that's not. Let's take this judicial proceedings calendar, report number 24. And we'll kind of move along with it. If senators would like to go take pictures with their respective teachers, please feel free for the next few minutes. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 384, Senator Heddleman, Landlord and Tenant, Stay of Eviction Proceeding for Rental Assistance Determination. Favorable with 2 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We're actually waiting for a technical amendment. Could we?
Why don't we special order it until for an hour?
Okay, perfect.
All right. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered for an hour.
Thank you so much.
All right. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 452, Senator Smith, Small Claims Examination in Aid of Enforcement Prohibition on Arrest or Incarceration for Failure to Appear. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, the bill prohibits the court from ordering an appearance of an individual for an examination in aid of enforcement money judgment in a small claims action in district court. There are 2 amendments. One is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill and prohibits the court from ordering the appearance of an individual for an examination in aided execution money judgment. I'd move the adoption of the favorable committee report and the two amendments.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 452 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 563, Senator Heddleman, real property actions to repossess judgment for tenants and proof of rental licensure, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, in jurisdictions that require landlords to be licensed, the bill requires a landlord to plead and demonstrate that the property is either licensed in compliance with applicable local rental licensing requirements or exempt from applicable local requirements. These requirements are applicable upon the filing of a failure to pay rent, tenant holding over, or breach of lease action. At trial, the landlord must demonstrate to the satisfaction of the court that the property is licensed or exempt. A landlord may provide electronic proof of licensure to satisfy such requirements. There are two committee amendments. The first one is technical. The second one strikes the award of costs and expenses in certain situations. It specifies that the bill doesn't apply to tenant holding over action or breach of lease action in certain situations and requires the landlord to provide the tenant notice. It alters the manner a landlord may demonstrate that the property is licensed, and it removes the exception for a temporary or provisional license. I move for the favorable adoption of the amendments on the report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 563 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 564, Senator Lee, landlord and tenant and wrongful detainer actions, eviction prevention services, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, a landlord and tenant action, this bill requires the court at trial to grant upon request, one, a recess for a reasonable period of time to allow the movement to use services of an eviction prevention services provider if such a provider is available at the court building during the time scheduled for trial, and two, a one-time continuance for a reasonable period, not more than 5 business days, if either party seeks legal representation or to procure necessary witnesses or obtain documents or other proof of claim of defense, or if the party demonstrates that the interest of justice will be better served by the court's order of referral of the parties to an eviction prevention service providers. There are two committee amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes wrongful detainer actions from the bill, specifies that continuance of trial is a one-time continuance, and that the court may grant continuance for more than 5 days with the consent of all parties for the purposes of the subpoena. Move favorable the committee report with amendments.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes the minority whip.
And a question on the amendments.
On the amendments, Senator will.
If the floor leader would yield.
Senator may proceed.
Certainly. Proceed.
Yes, I've seen in the testimony there's some concern from some groups that this is primarily a tool used against squatters. Did the amendments address any of the concerns from like the apartment buildings and realtors?
I don't think that issue was brought up, not to my knowledge, during the hearing.
Okay, Mr. President, I'd like to lay this bill over into the rule just so I can take a closer look at it.
The senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will be laid over under the rule. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 599, Senator Gazzoni, vehicle laws, driver's licenses, driver skills examinations, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this it turns this into a pilot program which Howard and Montgomery County would participate in, which a private driving school or vendor could then administer the driving test if the MVA agrees through an MOU. Those are the two amendments. I'd move the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Do they put parallel parking back into the driving?
They do not. Apparently,
Which
you
is
don't do parallel
crazy.
parking or
Crazy.
with a law enforcement officer anymore, so I don't know. They're just giving everyone a license these days.
Insurance rates are going to go up. All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 599 is hereby ordered, printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 673, Senator Bailey, Natural Resources Police Force, Employees, Authority of Secretary, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill alters the authority of the Secretary of Natural Resources with respect to the hiring and promotion of employees of the Natural Resource Police Force. Except as otherwise specified, the state personnel and pensions article does not apply or affect the compensation, rank, grade, or status of a natural resource police officer. However, the compensation, civilian classification, and status of civilian employees of the Natural Resource Police will still be determined in accordance with the state personnel and pensions article. There are 2 amendments. Number 1 is technical. Number 2 retains and amends existing provisions of the law relating to appointments and termination, strikes and alters a provision of the bill, requires the Natural Resource Police to take all necessary actions to pursue diversity within its sworn and civilian ranks as specified, requires the adoption of an action plan to diversify the Natural Resource Police workforce, and requires the Natural Resource Police to report on this action to the General Assembly. This passed committee unanimously. I move for the adoption of the favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 673 is hereby ordered, printed for third reader. All right, let's take up the laid over bill calendar number 37. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 582, Senator Bailey, Natural Resources, Recreational and Private Land Hunting. Question on adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, question before the body is on the 2 committee amendments and the favorable report. Chair recognizes the senator from Charles County on the amendments.
Yes, I have an amendment.
These are, they're not committee amendments. This is the senator's amendment.
Yes, my person.
Let's adopt the committee amendments and the report, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the committee's amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Senator from Charles County has an amendment. Clerk will collect the senator's amendment. And just give us one moment to load it up in the system.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Could I just kind of explain things about its
context? Sure.
Context, yes. So in the committee offered an amendment. It was written correctly, but it was not understood perfectly. And so we tweaked the amendments. And summary with this bill, this amendment does not change the purpose of the bill. It just preserves and make clear certain rights.
All right. Senator, want to explain the amendment?
Okay. Yeah. So as a little background, this bill has to do with hunting on private lands. So if you go to the Maryland Department of Natural Resources website, they have an annual report of hunting accidents that happen. Every year, 9, 10, or more accidents throughout the state, all over the state. And so we want our hunters to be careful. We want them to hunt. We want them to be able to enjoy the sport and have their children do that, but in a safe manner. So as a little background, I pulled off a couple reports from the Department of Natural Resources website on hunting accidents. One, a Kent County resident observed damage to their vehicle's windshield, which was consistent with that of pellet strikes from a shotgun. 2, another Kent County waterfowl hunter returned from a hunt observed damage to their park vehicle. Another incident report, a Frederick County resident observed damage to the exterior of their residence, which was consistent with that of a pellet strike from a shotgun. We can go on. 58-year-old Caroline County deer hunter injured. 14-year-old Somerset County turkey hunter in an incident. Let's go to Montgomery County. A 53-year-old Montgomery County visitor was injured. So it goes on and on and on. So we have to be careful and make sure we have certain guardrails around this. So this amendment I am proposing, Mr. President, colleagues, it simply states that if a landowner invites someone or someone's to their property to hunt, simply give an orientation of the borders of the property. Talk to them, let them know where the borders are, so that someone uninformed, not knowing the property, don't go beyond that border where you have homes, children playing, other folks that might be put in danger to personal property. So, Mr. President, that's simply put, and I just move the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the sponsor of the amendment. I have two that he shared with me yesterday. I appreciate him sharing those ahead of time. But I would encourage the body to reject this amendment. This is the one that involves showing the landowner showing the whole property and the property lines, or is this the one that was the one that you offered in committee?
No, this is the one that it says provide the invited or permitted individual with an orientation to inform them of the parameters, borders of the property. And so it doesn't prescribe that they have to sit in a class for 2 hours. It could be pass out a little map or just show or have a display of the property lines. That is up to the landlord. We don't want to be prescriptive, but do something to say, hey, you know, these are the borders and be careful.
Yeah, once again, urge the body to reject the amendment. I feel like it's not necessary.
All right, on the amendment, let's hear from senators who have not yet spoken. Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader mind yielding for a couple of questions?
Floor leader yield. Appears so. Senator may proceed.
I'm trying to, I didn't hear an explanation or logic as to the thought process for opposing the amendment. On its face value, it appears as though it just simply requires that if I've got 20 acres of property and I'm allowing some friends or guests to come hunt on that property, that I simply give them an indication of what the property boundaries are so that they don't wander across those boundaries into a neighboring property, particularly if they come and they park their car, let's say at my house, and my house is right on the edge of the property, and so, you know, the way the land lays, it goes maybe west-northwest, not south-southeast, and I want them to be aware of that. And simply, as I understand it under the amendment, it just simply would require me as the property owner and my guests to have a clear understanding. Here's the property. Hunt. Just be cautious that you're not crossing over into the neighbor's property. So can you share with me the logic in the opposition to that?
Sure. Talking to committee counsel, the orientation is just too broad and not clearly defined. And also, you know, you could have a property that's, you know, a couple hundred acres, you know, so if you have to show each person around the entire property when they're only going to be hunting in a small area. I mean, these landowners are careful. They're going to, when they take a hunter, they're going to show them, okay, you're allowed in this stand, or you're allowed here and there. You know, I actually rent some properties with, you know, deer stands on different corners of the hayfield, and you know, those property owners, they take those hunters and they say, you're allowed at this one, at this times, you know, stay here and there. So the feeling is this is not necessary, and it's not clearly defined.
So is it simply the word orientation within the amendment that's causing angst? Again, I mean, I'm just trying to understand, looking at the amendment, I didn't see any language where, you know, for instance, you have to walk the 200 acres to see where it could simply be, here's a property plat, and here's the creek to the east, and here's a stand of trees to the west. Beyond those, you're on the neighbor's property. So I'm still trying to grasp the concern. And I mean, if there's something that's there that I'm missing, I'm welcome to, you know, finding out and understanding better what that is. Maybe the bill sponsor can.
Sure. Could I yield to
With the floor,
address that?
yes, from the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thank you for your questions. I can clear up some of them. I'm going to give a little history of the bill, and then I think once you hear the explanation, it might satisfy your concerns. The case that we're discussing here is, if you remember the second report, didn't have anything to do with hunting, right? This is what we're dealing with is the recreational use status in Maryland, and this came to us through a suggestion that said we need to address this because there's a potential issue with liability for owners. And so that is on their private land, and that's where this came from. Now, when we talk about some of the issues of hunting accidents, you know, hunting accidents are really very unfortunate, but they are very wide-ranging. If you look at the number of hunting accidents, the number one hunting accident that occurs nationwide is fall from a tree stand, or fall when you're getting into a tree stand. That's the number one issue. And that's what the biggest issue is. But when we talk about issues where somebody's vehicle or house were damaged, the Natural Resource Statute already covers the negligence standard for landowners. And that was done actually when we talk about entering onto people's property. This body, we put that standard in place in 1957, and it has been working with that standard ever since. So to answer your question, when you look at the Natural Resource Article Title V, the answers to the questions about liability to these landowners is already covered. And when you read in the Natural Resource Article, the agreement for entering property is right in there as it was originally proposed. And the agreement for the privilege of entering on this private property for any recreational or educational purpose as defined in the Natural Resource Article, I agree to adhere to every law, observe every safety precaution and practice, take every precaution against fire, and assume all responsibility and liability for my person and my property while on the landowner's property. Now, when we talk about this issue and we talk about the fact that they are hunting, right, we understand that they have to go through a wide range of education to become a hunter. And then they need to then get permission to hunt from that landowner. And I will go to you to the agreement that a landowner signs when they give someone a permission to hunt. And that says, in return for the privilege of hunting and or trapping on this property, I agree to obey the laws, to observe all safety precautions and practices, to take every precaution against fire, and assume all responsibility and liability for my person and my property while on the landowner's property. Now, the issue is, when we talk about this, that is what a hunter is responsible for. I want you to consider just this issue when we talk about hunting, because that is as broad as this amendment is. Consider this. If you invite a person onto your property with their dogs to either chase raccoons or to chase foxes, right? What that means is if you're going to invite horseback riders on your property, this is what this amendment says, to run on your land with their hounds, if one of their hounds runs on to the neighboring farm and causes damage, the landowner of the hunting farm is responsible for the damage, not the hunt club, not the owner of the hound. No landowner will never allow a person to chase foxes on their land again if this prevails. That should get some attention, right, from every one of us. We don't want to do this. We have already set this up. This is already the standard that has applied for years. When we talk about the overreach and the natural extension, obviously a bunch of you are attorneys and will easily understand this. But when we're talking about the civil liability for landowners and the natural progression of this, we are talking about kids playing in yards, right? Playing golf, playing baseball, even throwing a frisbee. And anything that leaves that property will be the landowner's responsibility. As I say, in any person that has any future questions, Natural Resource Article 5, I think, addresses this very clearly.
So, Mr. Bill Sponsor, I am truly trying to follow this. The bill itself, it makes good sense. It puts the liability on the individual who's using the property, and I get it. If they're hunting, that individual is responsible for any bad outcomes or liability that comes from an incident. But what I don't see in the amendment, and forgive me if I misunderstood, I don't see anything in the amendment that changes the liability that you've got in the bill itself. The only thing that I'm seeing in the amendment is that it would simply require the landowner and the individual who's utilizing the property to have an understanding of what the boundaries are of that property. So let's say somebody is, using a snowmobile or a dirt bike because, they got great paths back there, or they're hunting. Just simply, here's the orientation of the property, here's how it lays, X is where you're standing right now, go have fun, but I want you to have an understanding of the perimeter of the property. What am I missing?
Totally understand, and that was my fault. I left out that part of your answer, and the issue is clearly this. There is a large number in our rural areas of landowners that are what we call absentee landowners. They don't live on that property. Many landowners don't live in the state of Maryland, right? But they own property here. This part of that amendment is going to require those people. It doesn't give any issue for them to have a designee, anything. They're going to have to fly back before they let anybody do anything on their property because they're going to have to do a walk around and show them the properties. It's very unrealistic.
So,
if we could potentially, I may have a idea. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Senator, Mr. President. Too much Benadryl. I spoke with one of the senators. I think we're all close and have the same intent, and I think there's a way around this, Mr. President. I spoke with committee counsel, and we might have some suggested language for a replacement amendment. So I would suggest we special order this
to the end of the calendar.
An hour, whatever it takes.
Let's do the end of the calendar and see if we've got are there any objections to the special order to the end of the calendar? Without objection, so ordered. All right, let's do number 39, layover calendar number 39. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 6, Senator Wallstreicher, Landlord and Tenant Residential Leases, Tenant Rights and Protections, Tenant Protection Act of 2022, Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report?
All right, question before the body are the 4 committee amendments. On the amendments, Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to withdraw the committee amendments, and I have a substitute amendment.
All right, Senator has made a motion to withdraw the committee amendments and replace them with a set of substitute amendments. If we could, are there any objections to the Senator's motion? Without objection, the committee amendments are withdrawn. We have a replacement set of committee amendments. Give us just a moment. All right, the Senator will explain the substitute amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. The substitute amendments are merely clarifying. The underlying policies of the bill remain the same. The bill, as amended by the substitute amendments, does 4 things. It establishes requirements and procedures for landlords that use a ratio utility billing system. It requires a statement of costs. It requires a landlord to allow a tenant organization to assemble in common areas. And lastly, it expands protections for tenants or legal occupants who are victims of domestic abuse. Mr. President, I move the substitute amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, the floor leader has moved for the substitute committee amendments. On the amendments, Chair recognizes
Just
Senator.
some quick questions for the floor leader, if I could, please.
Senator may proceed.
Yes, this bill and the current amendments were worked out, as you know, with the involvement of all the interested party, landlords, tenants, advocacy groups, and everyone.
That's correct.
And so I just want to make sure that I've reviewed your amendment. I just want to make sure that this amendment has already been agreed to by all those interested parties, all those interested parties as well.
That's correct. It has been agreed to by the MMHA, who represents landlords and housing providers, the tenant organizations, advocacy organizations, as well as domestic violence organizations that usually don't get involved in bills like this. So it's all been worked out.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. All right, any further questions on the amendments? If not, all in favor, Chair recognizes Senator from District 11. Nope. All right. On the amendments, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The substitute committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 6 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. All right, one of the special order bills that the time has come, I think we have received the amendments. While we are talking landlord-tenant, let's do, I think we can call up this special ordered bill. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 384, Senator Heddleman, landlord and tenant stay of eviction, proceeding for rental assistance determination, favorable with 2 amendments.
All right, question before the body is on the 2 committee amendments. Do we have substitute amendments?
Correct. Mr. President, I make a motion to withdraw the committee amendment and substitute the committee amendment for the purposes of a technical correction.
All right, are there any objections to the substitution? Without objection, the motion carries. We will collect the Senator substitute committee amendments. Always best to get it right. All right, Senator may explain the amendments.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this emergency bill establishes that in a failure to pay rent action, if a tenant presents satisfactory evidence that the tenant is currently awaiting a determination regarding the tenant's good faith effort for rental assistance, the court must, if the judgment has not been entered, stay the proceeding until resolution of the tenant's application and disbursement of any funds awarded, or 2, if the judgment has been entered in favor of the landlord, stay the execution of a warrant of restitution or order requiring the tenant to surrender the property until resolution of the tenant's application and disbursement of any funds awarded. The stay is a one-time stay and may not exceed 35 days. The bill is limited to a tenant who applies for rental assistance before or within 30 days from the date the landlord files a claim in court for failure to pay rent. The bill sunsets at the end of September 30th, 2025. And if I may just provide a little bit of explanation, we are receiving over $700 million worth of federal funds through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And as you may have heard from many of your constituents, many people are still waiting to get their rental assistance, just as they are also struggling with unemployment insurance, et cetera, and many people are in dire straits with regard to being able to pay their rent. This just gives a little bit of grace time to those individuals and allows each of our 24 jurisdictions who've had to stand up these massive programs a little bit of time to work with the courts to try and connect the dots with other agencies to make this process work a little more streamlined and a little more efficiently. So I move the committee amendment, the committee amendments and urge a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the substitute committee amendments. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th district on the amendments.
Thank you. This substitute, thank you. So the substitute amendment. So, Mr. President, we've actually got a series of landlord tenant bills where we've all compromised a lot and we've got bipartisan support for. So I just want to make sure we're that fragile piece here. So I just want to make sure. Would you maybe
happy to explain what we just did?
Yeah, or special order it for to the end of the calendar or
it's
something.
It's really,
whatever.
really simple.
Okay.
It was a typo in D.
Right.
It said the court may not stay a proceeding under subsection B1, and later it refers to B2. The numbers were just switched around, but everything, the meaning is totally what we think. So
thank you.
Just
No
a
further,
typo.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, excellent. On the amendments, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The substitute committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 384 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. It's just great to see these things getting worked out. That's the way the Senate works. All right. Let's see. We've got a special order calendar number 55. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 612, Senator Bidle, Street Racing and Exhibition Driving, Prohibited Acts and Enforcement. Questions on the adoption of the favorable report as amended.
All right, question is on the favorable report. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Mr. President, I've got an amendment that's pending, so I'd like to special order until the end of, what time are we going to recess today? Are we recessing?
Just trying to figure, haven't figured that out quite yet.
Just could I do it to the end of the day?
All right, to the end of the day, to the end of the day. All right, any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, we've got another layover bill. This is layover calendar number 38. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 691, Senator Carter, Juvenile Justice Reform. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, Senators, the question before the body is on the 3 committee amendments. Chair recognizes the senator from District 4 on the amendments.
Yeah, this is a pretty big bill, so I'd actually like to go through it. So if the floor leader would yield for some questions, we can go through the amendments, what the bill does.
Senator may proceed.
So if you look at the reprint of the bill, the first thing I want to make sure on what we did was the commission recommended that if you're 13 or under, basically there could be no criminal charges, and the committee added, because it seemed the commission forgot, crimes of violence. I just want to make sure I got that correct on page 3 of the reprint.
The committee added crimes of violence for anyone 10 or older. The 14101 crimes, that would be a crime if it were an adult court. That's what the committee added. The commission recommendations were not that robust. They simply went with the sentencing commission's recommendations for the most severe crimes, but our committee added all 14101 crimes for 10 and older.
All right, so once you get outside of the younger kids, and then you're going for the kids that are 13 and over, the bill gets into on page 5 what you can charge. So what they will turn over to the state's attorney for charging, correct? So it starts on page 5, goes into page 6.
Yeah, part 5, yes, begins informal adjustment or what would be diversion in adult court.
All right, so right now, so this means a DJS staffer won't turn over to a state's attorney essentially misdemeanors unless they involve firearms or the intentional causing or attempting to cause death or physical injury, correct?
So state's attorneys will always receive notification, but under this bill, all misdemeanors except those involving firearms would be informally adjusted or given diversion by the Department of Juvenile Services.
Exactly. So a state's attorney will not charge outside of those, correct? They're not given to state's attorney to charge, correct?
Correct.
All right. So would a DUI not be chargeable by a state's attorney?
I don't believe so. Interestingly enough, I think that DUIs are misdemeanors, so they would not be.
DUI, okay. So a 16 or 17-year-old is driving, they get a DUI, will not be turned over to a state's attorney under this bill.
That's correct. They'd be mandatorily given an opportunity for informal adjustment, which would mean an assessment will be done by the Department of Juvenile Services, and any programs or services that they needed would then be given to them. They'd have an opportunity to comply with whatever's required within 90 days, and if they do not comply within 90 days, then the petition would be forwarded to the state's attorney. It's kind of similar to like an adult. You know, for most first-timers in adult court, we offer probations before judgment. So, you know, it would stand to reason it's not outrageous that we would give youth an opportunity to get the programs and services they need without having a formal finding of delinquency.
Well, it does matter in that for DUI, for example, how does that interplay with our ignition interlock laws then?
I don't understand the question.
If they're not charged and they're not within our laws on criminally charged with a DUI, how does that work on the requirement for ignition interlocks?
Right. Well, it's not a conviction. Well, listen, if they comply with whatever's required of them within 90 days, then they would not have a conviction. They would not have a prosecution. But if they don't comply, then they'd still be subject to delinquency findings and whatever is already available in the juvenile court system.
All right, so just so I can wrap this up, if you are 16 or 17 years old under this bill, you get a DUI, you are not criminally charged, and you will not be required to have an ignition interlock, correct?
Well, that's correct, but I don't believe that you are required anyway in Maryland anytime under a first-time offense that's a probation before judgment.
That's if you get a probation for a judgment, but in the state of Maryland, we require for a first-time conviction for a DUI, we require an ignition interlock. Also, under this, what would not be turned over to a state's attorney? Would a hate crime be turned over to a state's attorney?
If it's a misdemeanor, no, because it would be subject to the mandatory opportunity for diversion. But if it's a felony hate crime, then yes, because felonies would be turned over.
Well, I bring this up to the body. You may think I just picked a salacious crime. This is a headline from March 9th. 3 Maryland students charged with a hate crime for online threats targeting black students. 3 8th graders from Middletown Middle School, which is unfortunately in Frederick County, were charged with a hate crime after threats surfaced on social media that targeted black students, Frederick County deputies said on Thursday. So if we were to pass this, these 3 students who were charged with a hate crime and threatening black students, they would not be criminally charged under the way this bill is currently constructed, correct?
If their actions only constitute a misdemeanor hate crime, no. But if they were felony hate crime, you know, usually a hate crime is attached to something else, and it's either a misdemeanor or a felony.
Okay, well in this case, I believe these were just misdemeanor charges in Frederick County. They were, so also under the charging aspect of it, it mentions firearms. What about possession of a deadly weapon?
So deadly weapon wouldn't be the same as a firearm. Firearms are unique in terms of their the way that they're used and the type of destruction they can cause, and that's why we attach firearms to things like use of firearm in the commission of a crime, of violence, and such. Here's the thing. Deadly weapons are very broadly construed in Maryland, meaning I've actually had a case where a kid threw a soda can, and the soda can was deemed to be a deadly weapon. And so I think we rightly don't equate any deadly weapon with a firearm, and that we allow for the Department of Juvenile Services to offer opportunities for diversion for these children. And again, I want to stress to the body, in case the body is confused, these are not freebies. These are, the Department of Juvenile Services assesses the child, does a full assessment, evaluation, determines what services and or programs the child needs, and then requires the child to complete these programs or services. And then if the child doesn't do it within 90 days, they are prosecuted as usual. It's
Okay.
not that different than
Well,
adult court, where we offer diversion to adults all the time.
With all due respect, this is not how we currently do it, because we currently allow state's attorneys to look at this in charge. And I'll give you another example of a deadly weapon. If a 17-year-old walks into school with a knife, under this, it would be up to a DJS personnel, not the state's attorney, to decide if they were charged, correct?
So if they walked in with a knife, possibly, but if they attempted to use the knife, that would be an assault, so that would be different.
No, but simply coming into school with a large knife, like a Bowie knife, possession of a deadly weapon, would not be criminally charged under this, correct?
Correct.
And the state's attorney loses the total decision to decide whether to charge or not.
But the Department of Juvenile Services has already made an assessment and decided what to do. And what we heard in our Juvenile Justice Reform Council meetings over time is that the Department of Juvenile Services is already offering this for youth that are charged with misdemeanors. Misdemeanors are not deemed to be of a level of severity that should require prosecution necessarily or commitment to the department.
Well, with all due respect, the vast majority of crimes in this state are misdemeanors. They are not felonies. Felonies are reserved for the worst crimes. So that's a lot of crimes we're talking about. We get to the next part of the bill, page 12. In the state of Maryland, there was a bill that came up years ago that we decided that in certain limited circumstances, we did not want what's called out-of-home placement. We did not want you to go to facility. We picked a very narrow set of crimes. We picked possession of marijuana. We picked purchase of a controlled dangerous substance. Basically, they were using drugs. Malicious destruction of property, use of inhalants, prostitution. Basically, we're looking for victimless crimes. The way that this is constructed now, basically, you will not get out-of-home placement. You will be right at home. You're not going anywhere if it is any misdemeanor, correct?
You will not be imprisoned. The equivalent of imprisonment is out-of-home placement. This does nothing to stop community detention or other kinds of restraints. It's simply that you are not committed to an out-of-home placement. And the rationale for that many of the experts talked about is that for the most minor things, it does more harm to the child's family, the community, to rip a child away from the family and community rather than keep them in education, keep them in services, keep them around support systems. Data after data shows that ripping children away from their homes often does more harm than good, and frankly, that winds up being a threat to the public safety.
So if you have a violent second-degree assault, if you have a violent second-degree assault,
if it's a violent second-degree assault, it's probably going to be a first-degree assault.
okay, I'd like to read the record.
In Maryland law, second-degree assault is a misdemeanor unless it's committed against a law enforcement officer, which this legislature decided.
Exactly. I would strongly disagree that a second-degree assault is not, Mr. President. I would strongly agree that is not, that characterizes not very violent is not correct. A second-degree assault means you can, if you're beating someone brutally with your fist or you're kicking them with your feet and all that, that's a second-degree assault. And I'll give you an example of a juvenile second-degree assault, Mr. President. Teens charged in deadly Great Frederick Fair. The second of two teen brothers charged after a man died at the Great Frederick Fair last year was placed on probation in order to continue anger management. The brother was 16 at the time of the assault and was charged with 2 counts of second-degree assault. For the result, for an attack that resulted in the death of a 59-year-old Mount Airy resident, John Marvin Weed. One of those charges, one count was for the teen reportedly spitting on Weed after he'd fallen to the ground, which was the charge that the teen then pleaded guilty to. And so that would be basically they assaulted him. The man died of the assaults. There were two teens. There was a 16-year-old joined in on it. That's what this article is talking about. The 15-year-old also started the assault. And the second charge was basically after they had knocked him out, which killed him, they then spit on him. So that's a second-degree assault in Maryland.
Sounds to me, if you know what that was taken to adult court. That wasn't put in the jurisdiction. It doesn't sound like it was the jurisdiction of the juvenile court. But at any rate,
It did end up there. This ended up in the juvenile system.
Oh, it got transferred back?
This was in the
after?
juvenile system. The
Okay.
state's attorney tried to have it waived up. They failed. Both cases end up in the juvenile system. So under this case, if you go out, under this example, these two assaulted someone, killed him, and they wouldn't even be sent anywhere. They just continue to go to the neighborhood and hang around.
So, Senators, just very briefly, let's check in here, timing-wise. So, this is going to be a bill that's going to get some debate. We're on the amendments. And certainly want to make sure that senators have an opportunity to talk about the bill, the report, if they're all for additional amendments. So, if we could focus in on the committee amendments at the moment, and then we'll have plenty of time.
I'm going through the amendments, Mr. President. With all due respect, I'm going through the reprint of the amendments.
Okay.
Also, under the committee reprint, so second-degree assault, DUIs would not be eligible for out-of-home placement. What about violating a peace or protective order?
So I'm going to correct you a little bit, because every single allegation that is not going to be necessarily prosecuted or result in an out-of-home placement under a delinquency finding can always be petitioned through a child in need of supervision petition, and always petitioned in another way through Senate petition, but usually child in need of supervision. And every single thing, including if a child needs out-of-home placement, is available through that Sen's petition. The thing that this extracts from it—
You're saying SINA?
No, I'm saying children in need of supervision. Every single thing that jurisdiction exists for those, just as it exists through this delinquency finding court, if you understand what I'm saying.
But I'm just saying for the amended language in front of us, what this language says, starting on page 12 of the reprint, is saying that the court may not, that it's an offense that would be a misdemeanor if committed by an adult, that they may not, in those cases, in these misdemeanors that I'm listing off, they would not be able to put them place them in outpatient or out of placement, out of home placement. Correct? I mean, that's the whole point of it.
Department of Juvenile Services delinquency through that prosecution vehicle, no, but through a SIN's petition, there's no limit to what the same things that could happen, whether if a child needs out-of-home placement, could happen through a SIN's petition, that can happen through a DJS, state's attorney prosecution.
Okay, but
Just saying through the state's attorney route,
yes,
no.
yes, this is saying when you have committed a crime in our state, and now we're saying you can't charge them most of the time, and this is saying then when they're convicted of the crime, that you can't send them to, the judge loses complete discretion to send them to a facility. So if they are a deadly weapon, if they violate a protective order, correct? A judge
Protective
may
orders
not.
don't exist in juvenile court, only peace orders.
Well, they violate a peace order then. They may not fall under this, correct?
Peace orders are civil and violation is a misdemeanor, so that is correct.
A threat of mass violence. We just had one of those in our school in Frederick County, Urbana, which I got up and talked about that's a misdemeanor, a threat of mass violence, is it not? I just mentioned Urbana High School had a threat of mass violence, and a juvenile was charged for that. Under this, that young man is not eligible for placement away from home, correct?
Correct, because that is a misdemeanor.
Correct.
Or
So
what would be a misdemeanor if it were an adult thing.
He can keep hanging around the neighborhood. He can go back to school. The kid who tried to make mustard gas can roll right back up to school the next day.
So let me be clear. When we say no prison, which is out-of-home placement, we are still saying community-based services that have been that are proven to be more successful in rehabilitating young people that make adolescent mistakes. And all of the data, all of the research over the last number of years shows that overly penalizing young people, putting them in environments around more criminal milieu, people more in the criminal milieu, putting them around people that are more violent, putting them in these institutions has the effect of creating a worse situation. And I think that's evidenced by, I believe that the numbers were, the recidivism rate is much, much higher for those children that are incarcerated than for children that are given these community-based services.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. President, normally when you do a criminal justice reform bill, you're trying to keep nonviolent offenders away from being incarcerated with violent offenders. This bill takes a bit of a different track in that it leaves both the nonviolent and the violent offenders just in the community. So if you go to page 14 of the bill, it talks about putting on place on judges. You know, we like to talk about judicial discretion in this body. We like to talk about it when people propose mandatory minimums. They say, we don't want to have judicial discretion. We don't want to take away judicial discretion. Leave it up to a judge to decide. So this bill says if you commit a felony, a judge has a maximum 1 year of probation they can put on you, correct?
That's not exactly correct, and I'll tell you why. The judge, if you commit a felony, can commit you, and probation may or may not even be a part of that. And this bill allows for every single period of probation to be continued, to be extended to, for any felony, for up to 36 months, except if it's life, a life crime, which would be, of course, up until the end of juvenile jurisdiction, which is 21. And it also has a mechanism where a judge can restart probation for someone that is in non-compliance with probation, unless it's a technical violation, which was your amendment.
So if you look at the, actually no, that's, with all due respect, we put on there a technical violation that you can't restart it, that a technical violation gets treated.
For a technical violation,
a technical,
for everything else you can.
That a technical gets started. But no, with all due respect, the clear reading of the bill is a child would be a felony not punishable by imprisonment if committed by adult. The court may place a child on probation for a period not exceeding, quote, 1 year, then at which point the judge may only then, every 3 months, come in, have a new hearing, and the max is 2 years. But the true max is 1 year, and if they go through this very cumbersome process, you can get them to most of 2 years. And my concern on that, on a felony, for example, that if you have a juvenile convicted of, let's say, carjacking, the bill, as in its current posture with these amendments.
Senator, just one moment. Senator from District 10.
I'm sorry.
You're yelling.
I apologize.
Thank you.
So the bill with the, under its current posture says 1 year if, for example, if it's a felony like carjacking, correct? 1 year max, and if they go through this cumbersome process, they can get to 2 years.
Okay, so it's not a cumbersome process. All experts and stakeholders, and for the record, every member of the commission, the Juvenile Justice Reform Council, supported this, including the state's attorney, including the law enforcement member. And the belief is that judges ought to review these decisions regularly to ensure that young people are understanding the goals of the probation and meeting the goals of the probation. The issue was that when judges just put on an extraneous probation with an indefinite probation without finite structure, finite processes in it, young people simply are confused, don't really know what's expected of them, and are less likely to comply with probation. So when you have these goal-setting probations, these periodic reviews, it's more effective for young people. That's the rationale behind it.
Okay, but so the bill, though, says in front of us that would you not agree that judicial discretion is removed so that they get, at best case scenario, a max of 2 years probation that they can put on these felonies?
Well, no, they get 36 months, which is, what, 3 years? because it's for good, but the judge has to have good cause to extend it for 3 years, and they should. The judge ought to have good cause to extend the probation. There ought to be a good reason to extend the probation.
So for these felony offenses, these all fall under this language that I'm talking about. With all due respect, the initial language is 1 year, so these felonies would all fall under that. Carjacking, correct?
I don't agree with you.
Why? It's a felony. Why would it not fall under this section?
I don't agree for the reasons that I already expressed.
Okay, well, with all due respect, carjacking is a felony that would fall under this.
Right, and so the judge will periodically review it, and if there's a need to extend it, the judge can and will.
Okay, so under the cap, you would agree that this bill creates a cap for judges on probation that they can set. That's one of the selling points of it, is that it creates a cap, and I'm reading language here, it's 1 year. They can review it and come in, it's 2 years. That's the cap the bill sets. So for a felony, it's carjacking is a felony. I mean, a lot of the second-degree rape is a felony that would fall under this cap.
So
Third-degree sex offenses would fall under this cap. Manufacturing, distribution of child pornography would fall under this cap. Distribution of drugs on school grounds would fall under this cap. Would they not be eligible under this felony? They would fall under it because they are not life sentences, correct?
yes, but as I've stated a number of times, the judge has the discretion to extend the probation out to 36 months and even restart the probation if the judge sees fit. There's an initial cap because we don't want an outrageous amount of probation that may not be even productive at the outset. I also want to reiterate something else, which is that this is probation. This has nothing to do with commitment. If a young person commits one of these most serious crimes you're talking about, or things that would be crimes in adult court, then they're going to be committed. There's not going to be most likely just this probation. They're going to be committed to the department, and probation is usually an extension of that commitment.
What is the current cap?
There is no current cap. Judges can do indefinite probation. It's 21.
Until 21, yes.
Until 21, yes.
Yes. So the problem is, and we'll get into it more when we debate the bill, but the problem is with this, if somebody commits one of the heinous crimes I just mentioned, which are clearly under here as felonies, carjacking, distribution of child pornography, all those terrible things I just mentioned off, and I'm not making them up, I got examples, there's tons of examples, they fall under this cap of the bill. And just my last thing I want to point out, because you mentioned the work of the commission, I actually think the commission put together a very radical proposal, and I'm actually surprised that they spent 2 years to come up with this, because the last thing, just so the body understands, that one of the things that the committee struck out is one of the amendments strikes this commission wanted to put a cap on life sentences. So if you murdered or committed first-degree rape, it would have had an initial 2-year cap you could have put somebody under probation for. That's how radical that this came in for. And one of the earlier amendments, Mr. President, I'll wrap up just so people can understand, one of the earlier amendments that is on this that we're about to vote to adopt, they had a one free gun that you got under the commission. You could walk into a high school with a loaded gun, and it wasn't until the second subsequent firearm offense that it became criminally punishable under this. So when we hear about the talk of this great commission, the commission and the committee has already been amended back some of their work, which would have dealt with caps on supervision for people that commit murder, first-degree rape, and people that come into school make it non-chargeable for your first firearm offenses. So I would say this is a very flawed product as it came in, and very flawed product as it's going out. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
All right, on the amendments, on the committee amendments, Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the body, I would ask that you adopt the committee amendments. Some of the things that the good senator just referenced, the committee did choose to amend in 3 places the recommendations of the Juvenile Justice Reform Council. I would reiterate to the body that that council made recommendations for this legislation, and it included law enforcement, it included state's attorney, and those entities voted in favor of these recommendations. This was a 2-year process to come up with best practices. Over the course of that time, we heard from local and national experts. There was bipartisanship. Members of this body, members of the House of Delegates, in a bipartisan fashion, all embraced the overall belief that young people are different and they need different kinds of interventions from older people, and that is why we came up with best practices that will prevail whether crime is up, crime or down. We still know these are best practices for dealing with children in the juvenile justice system. So for those reasons, I would ask that you would adopt the favorable committee report with the 3 amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, just a quick check-in here. Look, this is a big bill. It's an important bill. It's a lot of pieces, particularly for members on the committee who know this issue incredibly well, and certainly all the other members who haven't had a chance to debate it all. The intricate debate can happen, certainly most effectively in the committee. If there are specific points, if we could speak to the amendments as opposed to kind of rehashing debates, that would be much appreciated by, I think, all members of the Senate. So just as we move forward here, question remains on the 3 committee amendments, and the chair recognizes the senator from the 34th district.
Hey, Mr. President, I just want to respond briefly to the arguments that have been made here, because the champions of the bill, the floor leader had said that the indisputable evidence is that returning the offenders back to society is the best course of action. Well, and that's what the experts say. And quite frankly, the only people that disagree with that are all the many victims of violent juvenile crime, their loved ones, their families. They're the only people that disagree. I know they're not experts, but that's who's disagreeing with this. Oh, and one more group of people that's disagreeing with this is the 3 previous police commissioners for the city of Baltimore who have come before this body and said the problem is the problem with the rampant juvenile crime is that there are no consequences for bad behavior. And then we can add into that the police commissioner of Washington, D.C., who recently said the exact same thing. So what we're doing is doubling down on a policy that everyone except for the experts know is an abysmal failure. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President?
Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just trying to understand the process here. Was all of this already discussed in the committee and we're rehashing it on the floor?
Senator, I believe that may be the case. But look, I think there are issues that are going to come out from committee that I think are important for the full body to understand. The question is just going into the little back and forth details. I think would not necessarily behoove the Senate's debate at the end of the day. We got plenty of time. This is an important bill. We got to do it well. We've got to take up the committee amendments. We got to take up the report. I suspect there will be some additional amendments for debate. We do want to make sure that it's thoughtful, get to the points of actual decision. There's going to be places where we just disagree. That's just how it goes. And so, that's the
I believe
plan
that.
forward.
I'm just a big believer in the committee system, and if it's already been debated in committee, I just question why we need to debate it again on the floor.
All right, thank you, Senator. All right, on the committee amendments, chair recognizes the minority whip.
Mr. President, can I ask the floor leader to yield for a question?
Senator may proceed.
Just taking a look and listening to the debate, and I would run counter to my friend who just mentioned about it being in committee debate. We also understand that part of the committee system is that sometimes the people on the committee are best equipped to break down the bill and explain what happened, particularly it's very complex. So I'm not on the committee, but as I look at this bill, to the floor leader, so it's accurate to say that these amendments, we're still at a pretty, in my view, it's a pretty extreme bill still, but it was even more extreme before these amendments. So we were having people who were guilty of a felony that could, is it still true that if you're a juvenile charged with a felony, that you would, the judge can only give 1 year and then come back and give more maybe? Is that accurate?
That is somewhat accurate, but not completely, because as I've already explained a bunch of times, first of all, for the serious ones, they're going to be committed. That means incarceration, most likely followed by probation. It would be very unusual for a serious delinquency finding for a judge to simply issue probation straight up. But if the judge did, then the judge could issue probation for 1 year, have periodic reviews, and then could extend it up to 3 years unless it's a life crime, which is up until the end of the juvenile court jurisdiction.
Okay, and we've made some changes in our laws relative to juveniles recently, and I'm trying to piece it together in my mind. Already, have we passed and gotten into law that there's a lot more of just automatically having a juvenile start at the juvenile, even if it's a very serious crime? We don't do a lot of where they go to adult and get waived down, or has that not been passed yet?
We haven't, no, that's not something we've taken up
Okay,
this
because
year.
I mean, one of the concerns is you do it if you have a situation where they're being charged as a juvenile for a serious crime. There's not going to be the kind of consequences that there would be if they start out charging an adult. The other
That's another important thing, that if for the really serious things, they're going to be automatically charged as an adult. If they're 15 or older.
Okay, that's good, but we're still going to have, they still though, even if charged as an adult, could they still only be eligible for 1 year of probation under this bill?
No, this has nothing to do with anything in
Any of
adult
that,
court.
okay.
It's all the juvenile system.
Well, that's a question about being on the committee I didn't know, so thank you very much. I do think the back and forth here has been very instructive. The gentleman from Frederick does do a good job, I think, of pointing out that when you see a bill where it says, hey, for misdemeanors, there's a lot less severity of consequence potentially, and people in their mind immediately go to, well, it's a juvenile, it's a smash and grab, or it's a juvenile, you know, maybe breaks into a car or something. We don't want to put them in the criminal justice system for an offense like that. And I think that's that's a fair argument to have about how much of that should be. But misdemeanors can be extremely serious crimes. So we've got a lot of serious crimes that are misdemeanors, correct? And we are saying we are dramatically limiting in this bill, even in the amendments, we're still dramatically limiting a judge's ability to issue probation. And is correct?
Well, not. I guess if you're talking about probation, yeah, I thought the overall bill deals with misdemeanors differently than what would be a misdemeanor if it were an adult court versus what would be a felony. The entire bill deals differently with those things because we believe that misdemeanors are the most minor of offenses and that young people should be able to avail themselves of the age-appropriate programs and services to help to restore them, rehabilitate them, meet their needs, rather than be criminalized or overly punished, which has proven to be ineffective.
And my last question, Mr. President, the statement you just made to my friend from Baltimore City, the floor leader, you talked about how it's actually going to be safer for the community to not have some of these young people in the prison, getting into the prison's population, getting into the criminal justice system. Once again, I understand that argument when we're talking about diverting a young person who's made a mistake relative to stealing something or drug-related offenses, things like that. I understand, but this bill, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're really saying that there's a lot of very serious offenses that we still think it's more safe to have that student go back to their school after bringing a firearm to school than to make sure that, and perhaps that's a bad example, but bring some serious crimes where they've harmed somebody intentionally and perhaps multiple times, and we're saying it's safer to not have them be put somewhere else for a little while?
Well, if they've harmed someone multiple times under the bill, they can absolutely be committed. They can be committed either through the Department of Juvenile Services, state's attorney, that route, or they can be committed to what I've talked about earlier with a SINS petition, a child in need of supervision. So for the serious things, there's nothing in here that stops commitment. Commitment is juvenile equivalent of prison. There are mechanisms in place for the minor offenses, the misdemeanors, where they would be subject to other options, such as community detention and programs.
Okay, and I said the last question, but this really is the last question, Mr. President. When I look at what the problem we're trying to solve is with any bill, I see a huge problem with violent crime in a number of areas, and I think we've heard some examples that are not that are from different parts of the state and sometimes get talked about on the Senate floor. I've seen statistics that say juvenile crime is down, but some of that is we're not really enforcing some laws anymore on juveniles that we were maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. We're seeing a lot of violent juvenile behavior. What message does this send to pass a bill that really dramatically restricts the kind of consequences you can bring for very serious criminal offenses. What kind of message are we sending for this by passing something like this, even with the amendments?
I'm so happy that you asked me that question, because that is exactly the question that this Juvenile Justice Reform Council pondered for the 2 years that it met. And when we again heard from experts on neuroscience and neuroplasticity, it was repeatedly, through all research over the last number of years, decided, it's been decided, and we were privy to those decisions, that research, that data, that because young people do things, whether they're minor things or whether they're even sometimes really terrible things, because they're young, but because of their plasticity of their brains, they are most susceptible to rehabilitation, more so than even adults. And so the goal of this bill is to address those young people's needs, but where there are minor offenses, keeping that stigma of criminality away from them. You know, I thought about this, and I don't want to go on too long, but I did think about this quite a bit, and this might help you understand what the thought process of this Juvenile Justice Reform Council was in making these recommendations, which I reiterate was supported by law enforcement and the state's attorney, and the State's Attorneys Association has no opposition, for the record, on that either. But I thought about the stigma that we do to young people, and I thought about when I was in elementary school and how I was put in Hilton Elementary School 21, and I was put in what was considered to be the class with the smart people. So it was always thought, you're smart, we have high expectations of you. And guess what? We competed with each other, and we tried to do our best, and we tried to get A's, and we tried to excel, and for the most part, we did. I'm still friends with a lot of those people. But there was this other class, Mr. Gibbs' class. They told us those are the bad kids, the opportunity kids, the stigma that they couldn't achieve, they couldn't succeed. And guess what? For the most part, they didn't. So this is designed to address that issue where you're not overly stigmatizing and overly penalizing young people, and you're saying, you know what, we can help you be a better, more productive adult. And when you do that, they're less likely to commit later crimes, more crimes, violent crimes, and adult crimes. All of the data shows that. So that's why it's a public safety bill. It keeps us all safe when we treat young people with the programs and services they need.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your, I know your commitment to these issues, even though we have a lot of strong disagreements on certain things. I will say, Mr. President, just in closing my back and forth here, talking about the plasticity of the brain, first of all, very interesting. We have an interesting discussion when we talk about whether children are responsible for their actions and whether they need the kind of guidance from adults. Really interesting, because so on some issues in this chamber, we say we can't hold them accountable. So we cannot hold these students accountable, these young people accountable for certain really bad actions, even though they're really bad. But we also, and that their parents need to be involved, and we need adults involved. But then on other decisions, we say, hey, you're 12, 13, 14, you can decide whatever you want about some things. It's very interesting. It's a little bit of cognitive dissonance. I generally think, of course, in the juvenile system, that we, of course, need to give children and young people and students different and more chances than we would give an adult. But violent crime is sort of where we have to draw the line, particularly when we're talking about multiple offenses. The other thing I would say is my friend from Baltimore City, and I love the story she talked about how when she was in school, there were these high expectations for some kids, and then there were low expectations, apparently stated, unfortunately, low expectations for other kids. Well, the reason I don't think this overall bill is good is I believe in setting high expectations. I believe a lot of setting high expectations for everybody. And so when we water down consequences for aberrant bad behavior, not just bad behavior, but criminal violent behavior, again, separating out more minor offenses from things like some of the things that were listed, carjackings and extreme, that's an example of extremely violent behavior. When we lower and water down the standards, that actually sends the message that we expect less of you. It doesn't send the message that we expect more, in my view. So I know I'm assuming we'll probably have some amendments and some other discussion, but Mr. President, I think I'm concerned, very concerned about the direction of this bill. I think it sends a wrong message during a critical time in our state, but I do appreciate the answers in the debate.
right, thank you, Senator. All right, the question is on the three committee amendments. On the three committee amendments, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The three committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. On the report, Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I too agree with the committee system, but it ought to act as a distillation and not as a filter. And unfortunately, this is one of those examples where, unfortunately, that process sort of tended to act as a filter. So it's imperative that we do talk about what this is all about, and look at it holistically. This body asks often, and I just heard it today. We can't incarcerate ourselves out of our social problems, right? Certainly incarceration is a part of that, but we can't rely upon the criminal justice system to fix all of society's ills. I mean, there's kids born with addictions, there's kids born with trauma, physical and mental trauma, that have been subjected to violence, no parents, poverty. That's a lot for a child to deal with. And my DJS should play the role, sort of the net there, to pick up the pieces where other helpful agencies have failed. I mean, with Department of Social Services, schools, teachers, coaches, nonprofits, friends, family, relatives, neighbors, etc. Hopefully those pick up and make up for the losses that these children suffer. But every once in a while, they filter through that, and with tragic results, where we have violence in our society. And that's where DJS should step in. And it's a really important role that they're supposed to fulfill. But unfortunately, and recognize DJS is not punitive. DJS is rehabilitative. That's their mission. Fix the broken child. Not punish them, fix the broken child. That's what they're about. But they're not. Colleagues, it should be no secret that Department of Juvenile Services is failing their mission miserably. And I would submit to you that Senate Bill 691 is really little more than an effort to whitewash that failure. We're facing a rising number of juvenile crimes, and it's interesting that faced with this rising number of juvenile crimes and really a flooding of the system, the department we turn to the Vera Institute. What's the Vera Institute's mission? Their mission is, quite simply, to, quote, drastically reduce incarceration. Well, that's a fine mission to have, but what about reducing delinquency, illiteracy, hunger, homelessness, juvenile crime, juvenile violence? All of those missions. What about evaluating Department of Juvenile Services efforts, their qualifications, their qualities, their problems? This bill is focused entirely on ignoring the underlying problems. And why do I say that? Why do I say that this bill is focused on ignoring the underlying problems? Because when you look at what Senate Bill 691 does, what it says is it's about reducing the number of kids receiving services from Department of Juvenile Services. It limits jurisdiction, it raises it raises the minimum age on their jurisdiction, it caps probation, it drastically limits the agent's discretion, and it removes the state's attorney's oversight. It's moves stuff through. What does this bill not cover? It has nothing to do about reviewing DJS policies. It doesn't say anything about DJS programs, their processes, their procedures, their staffing. None of that's reviewed. Nobody looked at this entire commission on Department of Juvenile Services. There's nothing about DJS's hiring and retention policies, DJS facilities, their metrics for success. No. Everything here is about limiting the number of people going into this system, and those who do get into it, move them through very quickly. 3 years ago, I spent considerable time, my own time, interviewing agents, going into the facilities, talking to folks, trying to understand this. I did about a 3 or 4 page letter to Department of Juvenile Services saying, hey, look, here's what I found out on my own. These look like really serious problems. And the response was crickets, nothing. We had a mother testified at the hearing on this bill. Her son was picked up. He was sent to Department of Juvenile Services. This kid spent, I think it was about 860 days in juvenile services. And the mother was pushing back that entire time, trying to oppose her son's 860 days there. As she testified, she got no help from the Department of Juvenile Services on that. There was no assistance. She felt all alone in that process. Well, then where does it end up? Eventually the kid gets released, and he gets 3 months with a woman who this woman actually felt was good. She was a committed, caring DJS worker who she felt actually did her son some good. But that only lasted 3 months. Then she got a DJS worker who she felt was totally disconnected, did no good for her son. That lasted for 3 months. After 6 months, after 860 days in DJS facility, this kid's released. He gets 6 months, and then he's sent on his way. Well, the real tragedy is then 6 months later, he's in the Department of Correction, Division of Correction as an adult, doing serious time for crime. This woman said, yeah, her son would have he benefited from the first 3 months, and he would have benefited from much more time on probation. But he didn't get that, and she was really regretful of that. And that's a real tragedy, because this is one more life ruined, not by our criminal justice system, but by the failures of DJS. And so it really bothers me where we are with this report. And I just want to, here's where we are with this. Here's the report by DJS. This report, they talk about, in 2019, there were almost 19,000 referrals to DJS, almost all by police, right? Then in 2020, those go down to 15,000. By 2021, they go down to 7,000. From 18,000 to 7,000, from 2019 to 2021. That's like over Niagara Falls. And of course, that period of time corresponds with a lot of stuff that was going on in the criminal justice system. That's a drastic reduction in police referrals to DJS. And when I asked the secretary about that, you know what his response was? Everything we're doing is working. That's why that's there. It was as if his response was basically, the reason that you're seeing that precipitous drop is because all the children sprouted little angels' wings, and everything became beautiful when the sun came out and rainbows. I find that's who's chaired this commission. That's the chair of this commission. This is not where we need to go with this. Maryland can do so much better than this. To me, Senate Bill 691 is nothing less than cynicism codified. Our children need a better system. This is not it. And pushing kids, that's what this bill does. It pushes kids through, minimizes their time in it, and it says, hey, you had your 3 months, goodbye. You had your 6 months, goodbye. You had your 1 year, goodbye. That's not what we should be about. And if we want to do a real commission on juvenile justice, it shouldn't be chaired by the secretary. It shouldn't involve an entity whose mission is to just simply do away with the entire justice system. It should actually look at this department and what we're doing, what we're not doing. There are things out there. Nothing in this report says, hey, there's this awesome program in Idaho or some incredible processes here and there. We've gone around to look at America, and here's the best and brightest. Here's what we need to know. Nobody said, hey, maybe the pay for juvenile services workers is too low, and these are actually really important jobs to have these frontline workers who are truly caring people and who understand. And nothing like that. Nothing to encourage. So, colleagues, I think that the report reflects the process of the bill, and I think that that we really are going the wrong way with this. I would just ask you to reject the report. Thank you.
All right, Senators, let's see, the timing-wise here. We're not going to take up the amendments today, or during this session. We have a lot of committees that have to get in. The proposal would be if we adopt or take a vote on the report, if the report moves forward, assuming that the report moved forward, that we'd take up one amendment to be able to special order if we have to have something in front of us, and then special order it to be the first piece of business for the subsequent session. If that would work, then we can get committees out by 1, and it's looking like we'll be back here by probably 3:30. 3:30 is the general timeline for tonight. I know there's a lot of stuff backed up, but if we want to do we'll move forward with that. I assume there are amendments ready that we could just put one of them in special order. Okay. So the question before the body is on the adoption of the favorable report as amended. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the report, say aye. Say aye. All opposed, nay. The report is adopted. All right. Senator has an amendment Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th District who has an amendment. We'll
Do you
collect
want me to
amendments.
explain this or just wait till we come back?
Let's just wait till we come back.
All right.
Keep it fresh.
And while this is being circulated, can I just make the motion to, would you
Special
like me
order.
or like the
That's fine.
majority leader? Just make the
Yeah,
motion
let's
to
get-
special order this until later today.
All right, the senator moves the amendment and has special ordered the bill until the appropriate time later this afternoon. Assuming there are no objections, the motion carries. The bill and the amendment will be special ordered to the appropriate time this afternoon. Chair recognizes the senator from District 30.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we've had some very, very patient guests waiting and watching as we've had an enlightening debate, and I would like to ask if they would stand. They're waiting for their tour, but I wanted to make sure that we said hello. So we have constituents from around the state who are here, I have in my notes, to see the Senate in action, and boy, have you this morning. So if I could just introduce Mr. Stephen Pinckney, Ms. Peggy Lewis, Ms. Donna Fitzgerald Schuler, Ms. Andrea Crittenden-Haggins, and Mr. Robert Haggins. And I ask that we please extend a warm Senate welcome to our guests.
Welcome. Some thoughtful conversation they were able to see today, so greatly appreciate the accommodations. All right, let's do committee announcements. Chair recognizes the Chair of Finance.
If I could just preparatorily, I wanted to respond to colleagues who seem so concerned about the state of the juvenile situation. We did something good last year, and all of you helped with it, when we passed the redevelopment, the total restructuring of juvenile justice education. It isn't online yet, but it's working. So go back and take a look at last year. We didn't just leave it. It's working. I've been going online looking at the meetings of the persons that you have dedicated with the responsibility of restructuring an entire educational system to do right by the kids and to give us better outcomes. So I just wanted to remind us of that.
And Finance?
Okay. So what time are we coming back here?
3:30.
Okay. Well,
we have rules. We'll have a Rules Committee meeting immediately following this.
at 2:15, Senate Finance will meet.
2:15. Let's do Chair of Rules Committee quickly.
Yes, could I? Thank you, Mr. President, if I could interrupt here. I want the Rules Committee to meet directly after the session. We're only going to be there just a few minutes. And then after that, Mr. President, if I could, I would ask that the senators from Prince George's County, right after the Rules Committee meeting, meet with me immediately in the Neal's Committee room upstairs in the James Building. We'll only be there for 10 minutes.
All right, Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, we'll meet at 2:45 for voting.
2:45. All right, Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will meet at 1:30 to approve the capital budget.
1:30. All right. Chair recognizes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. Judicial proceedings will meet today at 2 p.m. for voting.
2 p.m. for voting. Excellent. All right. Any other delegations or select committees? If not, any other announcements before we adjourn? Okay, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until 3:30 this afternoon.
3:30 without objection, so ordered. Work hard. See you later.